I'm joined today by our friend and guest, Simon Bradbury of Thomas Morris Estate Agents. How are you doing?
Yeah, very good. Thank you very, very much.
We're here today to talk about one supplier in particular, which is Sinclair Taylor. For those people that might not have heard of Sinclair Taylor, what sort of work are they undertaking for you, Simon?
Well, they're undertaking for us specifically debt recovery, which is real. I mean, they offer a whole range of services, tenant referencing, chasing absconded tenants, all sorts of stuff like that. But they're real, I think, in terms of most mainstream estate agents, the services that they're really, really renowned for, and have certainly helped us with, is debt recovery, which I'm happy to give you a little bit more information about if you want later on, and also withdrawn listings when a vendor apparently withdraws their property because apparently their circumstances have changed and decided not to move. And what's a shocker? They've actually sold it to somebody else, perhaps sometimes through another estate agent, and Sinclair Taylor are able to sort that out.
So some people who won't have that background in estate agency may think, well, it's quite simple. The solicitors always pay the estate agents at the end of the transaction, and there's never a hiccup. But those of us that have been working long enough in estate agency know that every once in a while you're going to get a call from a solicitor and said, look, I've not told you this, but my instructions are to withhold on paying your fees, and it's then sort of used to barter with at the end. So it can leave you in a tight corner. The other instance you've already touched on today is when a seller will say to you, look, I've decided I'm not selling it anymore, we're staying here, we've had a change in circumstances, or the family member that has decided that they're going to occupy the property. And all too often this can be a thinly veiled attempt to sort of disguise a genuine sale to somebody that has been introduced during the term of your agency, or that you might have introduced directly yourself. So there's no real way of knowing. And in those instances, you don't want to be necessarily getting bogged down in the nitty-gritty of chasing down you money yourself. It's not particularly pleasant.
No, I mean, you've touched on a number of things there, David. First of all, the terms of the agency agreement. Now, everybody thinks they've got a really good agency agreement. One of the first things that Sinclair Taylor do, if you decide to partner with them, is they ask for your agency agreement. Now, these guys are experts, incredibly knowledgeable, very, very, very experts on what they do, and they're able to advise you with the wide experience they have of using lots of agents and advising lots of agents up and down the country. The sort of first base, really. How secure is your agency agreement? Is it up to date with all the latest legal requirements for an agency agreement? Because, of course, very often people, not very often, as you've alluded to, very occasionally, people will try and wriggle out of their obligations because they'll say that, or their barrister or solicitor will say, well, actually, this is a non-functioning agreement because of A, B, C, and D. So that's base camp one that they'll be able to advise and help you with.
Yeah.
And of course, nothing can be guaranteed at all, but with the experience that Sinclair Taylor have, they're able to advise you on your agency agreement. And then that's the first thing they reference when they spot or you advise them of a problem with either debt recovery or withdrawn property, because it all goes back to the agency agreement. And if you've got a tight agency agreement and you've done everything properly, there's very little that can go wrong if you've got the right advice and support. The other thing that you touched on there, David, was which I think is a massive, huge benefit for using Sinclair Taylor, is the time that it saves. Because even very experienced estate agents, they sometimes get a sense that there's something wrong, they're not going to be paid, or they get a sense that the complaint that's being put through is a bit frivolous. And most of the time, I would say you can resolve these things rather quickly. But if you get a really, really difficult one, and we've had a few over the years, the time and energy and frankly, emotional investment alone, nothing else, that goes into resolving those things is massive. And Sinclair Taylor, just take that off your plate.
And it's a very delicate balance, isn't it? We as an estate agent want to maintain this sort of friendly, easy to deal with image, and you can't just switch hats to somebody that has to sort of be a little bit more tough when it comes to sort of dealing with unpleasant matters such as money's owed. So it helps to have a third party professional buffer. I end up saying this to my vendors a lot. If I'm discouraging them from selling direct, you need somebody fighting your corner that's not necessarily vested in it.
Honestly, I didn't know you were going to say that, David, but the analogy that I use when I talk to people about this is that, of course, somebody might want to sell the house privately. They may, and they might be successful. They might use a cheap upfront payment agent in inverted commas, get their property on Rightmove or Zoopla or on the market, whatever, somehow, some way. They might find a buyer, they might negotiate what they think is a good price, might even be a good price, and it might go through, and they might end up saving themselves a few £1,000s. But we know as professional estate agents the value that we bring because of our expertise and knowledge that adds value to the whole proposition. And ultimately, I would say, for most of the time, it will mean the vendor or seller will be better off. It's exactly the same with this. Of course, with the amount of knowledge and experience that I personally have and my fellow colleagues at Thomas Morris have, we like to think that most of the situations, most of the time, we can handle. But when it comes to legal stuff, and when the going gets really sticky and tough, you really do need someone like Sinclair Taylor to really, really make sure that it works.
I mean, we've talked about various sort of different scenarios. Is there anything that sort of sticks out in your mind specifically that as a good example of where this comes into play?
Yes, so we've used them a number of times over the years. In fact, I think we're now in our 23rd or 24th year with them.
Wow. And tried and tested, truly.
Tried and tested, absolutely. And in association with you guys at Kerfuffle and with our own processes, I can absolutely assure you we regularly review our suppliers. And we'll drop some, change some, renegotiate with some. But Sinclair Taylor, I would say, probably with the honourable exception of the portals, they're probably our longest serving supplier, good or bad, and I definitely think that they're a longest serving supplier. In actual fact, I would say in the last few weeks, currently, we have a story which hasn't been resolved yet. I'm very confident it will be resolved. But I'll just run through that story. Is that okay? This is currently
please. Yeah.
Okay. So we sold a sale agreed property. I won't bore you with the details. It was a bit of a challenging one to get through to negotiate. And the fee, David, was over £20,000, which for us is a lot of money. A lot of money.
Sure.
It exchanged. We tried to speak to the solicitor. He called us back to say, I've been told not to pay you. You need to speak directly with the vendor. So immediately, obviously, the alarm bells went on. This was just over a year ago, by the way. This started at exchange. And we then tried to contact this couple through email, telephone, WhatsApp even, because they were using that to communicate with us. They never did respond. So we knew there was going to be some sort of an issue. We then tried to track them down, but we couldn't get hold of their forwarding address. Schoolboy error, you might say, but for various reasons, we weren't able to get hold of it, even when we didn't know there was a problem. Eventually found their forwarding address, contacted them. Again, they were very reluctant to contact us, and eventually claimed, erroneously from our perspective, that they had contacted us, which they hadn't. So anyway, we went along with this, went along through our complaints procedure, huge amounts of time with them not contacting us. We did everything in accordance with our complaints procedure, everything you should do. Then they seemed to disappear again. We couldn't get hold of them. And we got to the final viewpoint of the ombudsman, where you have to present to the ombudsman to say this is our final viewpoint. Invited him to take us to the ombudsman. He didn't. And we thought, well, what's going to happen? So I had a chat with the Sinclair Taylor team. They found him, I'm not exaggerating, they found his new address within days, contacted him on our behalf. And of course, suddenly now that the game has changed now, the person A knows that we know where they are, and B, that there's some expert debt collection company is going to be chasing them for what we perceive to be our our rightful fees, over 20,000, as I said. Anyway, because the long story short, the guy did respond, then he stopped responding, then he responded again. This is the Sinclair Taylor. Then he stopped responding. Then he appeared to change address. Sinclair Taylor tracked down his next address. And then when I think we had, and then Sinclair Taylor advised that to really make it safe for us. And this is the great thing about these guys. You know, they really, really know their stuff. They've been there, done it hundreds and hundreds, thousands of times. Whereas for you and I, it happens, you know, once or twice every couple of years or whatever. So they advised us to get some barrister advice, which we did. I think it was a he. He advised us that we should, we were perfectly safe. 8 days before the deadline expires for the ombudsman reporting of a complaint, the guy then goes to the ombudsman. Sinclair Taylor advised us what to do because I didn't even know. It's actually in the code, but I didn't realise this until Sinclair Taylor advised us. It's actually possible to ask for a complaint, a frivolous complaint. There's no grounds, as we believe this one doesn't. You can actually ask for it not even to be considered by the ombudsman, which is what we've done, and that's where we are. So Sinclair Taylor now have held off the court proceedings, and we're waiting for a response back from the ombudsman. Either way, I feel 100% confident that we will win, either through the ombudsman with the support and help of Sinclair Taylor, or we will end up taking the guy to court and win then. And that's a real life example that's happening now. And Bill Sinclair Taylor is very, very confident that we will get our costs back on top of.
Yeah, no, it sounds like every agent sort of nightmare scenario where that contact gets cut off and people feel that they can sort of outrun you. And it's unfair, you know, we speculate a lot of what we do on a day-to-day. We speculate up front, we expect to get paid at the end. And when that doesn't happen, it's such a lot of cost and effort and
the time you spend on these things. I'm sure every estate agent watching this will sympathise that occasionally you get a complaint through and you think, to be fair, we let them down here, either to a bigger or lesser degree. Let's just settle it and move on, because you know all the time involved in doing anything else. But some of them, the other thing I like about Sinclair Taylor is that they're like, just be careful of your principles, Simon. You know, don't be jumping up and down for something that's not worth jumping up and down about just because you think you're right. Let's really think about this from a business perspective, and that's what they think about it from a business perspective.
And that's so important from a sort of a PR aspect, also commercial aspect. These are all the things we've got to do when making decisions, and it doesn't pay to make them emotionally. You need professionals to give you that viewpoint there. How would you advise agents if they were looking to sort of pick this up and integrate it into their systems? Do you just routinely give Sinclair Taylor a list of stuff that has been withdrawn from the market and you want them to keep an eye on, or do you just use it for problem cases?
We just use it for problem cases, but you have the option. This is the beauty of Sinclair Taylor. They really are. I know it's a cliche. We really do care about our customers, but these guys really, really do. And they will offer you any sort of service, any sort of thing that you want, whatever your approach is. You have an initial phone call with them. As I said, normally they'll expect you to, or ask you to send them your agency agreement. And I mean, that's it really. The onboarding process, was of a better phrase, it doesn't even feel like an onboarding process. It does feel that you're, I call them suppliers, but I do think about them more as partners and colleagues more than anything else. It's a very smooth operation, very smooth.
You know what, when we talk about prop tech or solutions and services that are provided by companies, we always try and sort of use them in the nice scenarios. We're planning for when life goes right, but it does pay to plan a little bit for when life goes wrong. And this is where it can come into play. So really grateful, Simon, for you to stopping in with us and giving us your personal experiences. Good luck with the outcome of that case. It sounds like they're well on it. And thank you very much for sharing with us.
No problems. Lovely to chat.
Thank you.